You smell it before you see it. A faint, sharp edge in the air that wasn't there an hour ago. Then a strange orange glow low on the horizon, like a second sunset in the wrong direction. And then the wind shifts, and suddenly, the smell isn't faint anymore. Fire had been one of ancient humans' greatest tools for hundreds of thousands of years. Warmth, light, protection from the dark. But out here, uncontrolled, racing across dry grass and brush with the wind behind it, fire stopped being a tool. It became one of the fastest, most unpredictable killers on the planet. So picture yourself there. The glow's getting brighter, the smell is getting stronger, and you have to decide right now which direction actually leads to safety. Because in the wrong direction, this thing can move faster than you can run. So how did ancient humans survive something that could outrun them, blind them, and suffocate them, sometimes before they even saw a single flame? Because the real killer usually wasn't the fire at all. And the way ancient humans eventually learned to handle this threat is so clever that some of them stopped simply fleeing it and started using it as a weapon of their own. But first, be honest. Do you think you could outrun a wildfire? Take a guess before I tell you. Most people guess wrong. Let's start with the part almost everyone gets wrong: how fast a wildfire can actually move. A grass fire, pushed by strong wind across dry, open ground, can travel faster than a person can run. Not for a short sprint, but sustained, mile after mile, especially uphill, where flames climb far quicker than they spread on flat ground. Fire doesn't need to walk around obstacles or catch its breath. It just needs fuel and wind, and both were usually easy to find in the kind of dry landscapes ancient humans lived in. This is the first hard truth. In the wrong conditions, running directly away from a wildfire, especially uphill or with the wind at your back, could be exactly the wrong move. Ancient humans who survived these events weren't necessarily the fastest. They were the ones who understood, correctly and quickly, which direction the fire was actually going to go. But speed wasn't even the most dangerous part of a wildfire. The thing that actually killed people first was something most people don't even think about. Here's the twist that changes everything about this story. It usually wasn't the flames that killed you, it was the smoke. A wildfire burns through vegetation and throws enormous amounts of smoke and toxic gas into the air well ahead of the actual flame front. Breathe enough of it in, and your body starts to fail long before any fire reaches you. Your lungs struggle, your thinking gets foggy, your muscles weaken, and in bad enough smoke, a person can lose consciousness without ever feeling the heat of the fire itself. Many wildfire deaths throughout history happened this way, not burned, but overcome by smoke before they ever got close enough to be burned at all. For an ancient human, this made a wildfire a strange, sneaky kind of danger. You could be standing a good distance from the actual flames and still be in mortal danger, breathing air that was quietly shutting your body down. Fleeing wasn't just about running from heat, it was about getting out of the smoke and fast, because the smoke could beat the fire there. So how did you know a wildfire was coming before it was already at your doorstep? The land itself gave warning, if you knew how to read it. Animals are extraordinarily sensitive to smoke and to the subtle signs of fire long before humans notice anything at all. A sudden, unified movement of wildlife, birds lifting off all at once, deer and other animals moving fast in the same direction, insects and small creatures fleeing ahead of schedule, was one of the oldest, most reliable warnings available. When the animals all start moving the same way, at the same time, for no obvious reason, something is very wrong. Wind was the second clue. A sudden shift in wind direction, especially a hot, dry gust in a season when everything was already parched, was exactly the kind of condition wildfires thrive in. Ancient humans who paid close attention to these signs, the smell in the air, the behavior of animals, the feel of the wind, often had crucial extra minutes to move before the danger became obvious to everyone else. Those extra minutes were sometimes the entire difference between escaping safely and being caught. Quick one for the comments. Did you know animals fleeing all at once in the same direction is one of the oldest wildfire warning signs there is? Nature basically has its own alarm system. Once the fire was undeniably coming, the next decision was the one that actually determined who lived, which way to run. Fire climbs uphill dramatically faster than it spreads on flat ground or moves downhill because heat rises and preheats the fuel directly above it, letting flames race upward almost like a fuse. It also moves fastest in the direction the wind is already blowing. So running uphill or running with the wind at your back could mean running directly into the fire's fastest possible path, the worst choice available, even though it might feel like the obvious way to escape. The safer instinct, the one experienced people learned to trust, was to move sideways across the fire's path rather than directly away from it or downhill toward open ground, rivers, rock, or anywhere that had little or nothing left to burn. Understanding fire's behavior, not just fleeing on instinct, was the difference between an escape route and a trap. Ancient humans who lived in fire-prone landscapes generation after generation built up exactly this kind of knowledge. Not panic, but pattern. And if you couldn't outrun it, there was one final desperate trick: finding ground the fire had already taken. Once an area has burned, there's usually little or nothing left for the fire to consume there again. A patch of already blackened ground, a wide river, a bare rocky outcrop, or an area stripped clean by a previous fire could all serve as something close to a safe island in the middle of an active blaze. As a true last resort, digging into loose soil or ash, finding the lowest possible ground, and covering exposed skin could mean surviving direct exposure that would otherwise be fatal. This wasn't comfortable, it wasn't guaranteed, but it reflects the same pattern that shows up again and again across ancient human survival. When the obvious options run out, look for the place the danger has already passed through, because it usually can't hurt you there twice. But the most remarkable part of this whole story isn't how ancient humans fled fire. It's that eventually some of them stopped simply running from it and turned it into a tool instead. Across multiple continents, going back thousands of years, ancient and indigenous communities developed a genuinely brilliant strategy, deliberately setting small, controlled fires themselves. It sounds backwards, fighting fire by starting fire, but the logic is sound. A landscape left alone builds up thick, dry undergrowth and dead vegetation over years, which is exactly the fuel a massive, uncontrollable wildfire needs. By deliberately burning small, manageable patches on their own terms, in conditions they chose, ancient people cleared out that dangerous buildup before it could accumulate into something catastrophic. Think about the sheer confidence that takes, using the very thing that could kill you on your own terms to prevent it from killing you later on nature's terms. This wasn't reckless, it was one of the most sophisticated pieces of environmental management in the ancient world. Humans learning to work with fire's nature instead of only fearing it, using small, deliberate danger to prevent overwhelming, accidental danger. And this deliberate use of fire revealed something else. Destruction and renewal are closer together than they look. A burned landscape looks like devastation in the moment. Blackened ground, no cover, seemingly nothing left. But fire also clears out old, choking growth and returns nutrients to the soil almost immediately. In the months that followed a fire, many landscapes came back richer than before, fresh, tender new growth that attracted grazing animals, and grazing animals that attracted the hunters who understood this pattern. Communities that knew how to read a recently burned landscape weren't looking at ruin. They were looking at an opportunity that hadn't existed a season earlier. This is the same lesson that shows up again and again in the story of ancient survival. The most dangerous forces in nature were rarely purely destructive. Understood well enough, they could become something closer to a harsh, demanding partner, one that took a great deal, but occasionally gave something valuable back to the people patient and observant enough to notice. So step back and look at what surviving wildfire actually demanded from ancient humans. Because it's more than raw fear and fast legs. It demanded understanding a threat that could move faster than a person could run, and often killed silently through smoke before flame ever arrived. It demanded reading warning signs in animal behaviors and shifting wind before the danger was obvious to everyone else. It demanded knowing exactly which direction was actually safe, even when instinct pointed the wrong way. And eventually, it demanded something even bigger. The confidence to use the very force that could kill you as a deliberate tool to protect yourself from a worse version of the same danger later. No other animal manages fire. No other animal turns its most catastrophic natural threat into infrastructure. That capacity to study a killer closely enough to eventually control a version of it might be one of the clearest examples in this entire channel of what actually makes humans different from every other species on Earth. So, how did ancient humans survive a wildfire? Not by being fast enough to outrun it in a straight line. Often, that wouldn't have worked at all. They survived by reading the smoke and the wind and the animals before the danger was obvious, by understanding exactly which direction fire actually travels fastest, and refusing to run straight into it, by seeking out ground the fire had already taken when there was nowhere else left to go. And eventually, by turning their understanding of fire into deliberate, controlled burns that prevented the very disasters they once could only run from. Honestly, I think this might be the clearest example on this whole channel of what makes ancient humans genuinely remarkable. Every other species facing wildfire has exactly one strategy: run and hope. Humans looked at the same terrifying force, studied it, learned its patterns, and eventually decided they could use it on their own terms instead of only fearing it. That's not bravery. That's something closer to genuine mastery, earned the hard way, generation after generation, by people who paid close enough attention to a killer to eventually make peace with it. If this changed how you see the people you came from, subscribe. That's the whole point of this channel, the why behind being human. And if you want to see how these same people survived killing heat, freezing cold, the dark, hunger, predators, the deadliest animal on Earth, the dangers of being born, a disaster that almost wiped us out, and weeks of endless rain, those videos are on screen right now. Go watch, because even for those who escaped the flames completely unharmed, the danger sometimes wasn't over. A single burn, a single wound left over from a close call, could quietly turn into something far more dangerous than the fire itself ever was. That's a story for another day.